Yo, what's happening, people? Back again for another stream. Remember, don't forget to smash the like button and don't forget to subscribe to my channel at Gav Goes In. So, for me, 4 players that are detrimental to the future success of Manchester United. 4 players that are fan favourites for different reasons. 4 players that over the past seasons have been given more or less the keys to Old Trafford to do what they want, and have been revered by many as the key players of the team. For me, I have a difference of opinion, just like many, but 4 players that, for me, for sure, either have to be moved on in the summer or become bench options. And that is Bruno Fernandes, Marcus Rashford, Alejandro Garnacho, and Rasmus Hojlund. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to go through all 4 of them individually as to why I think they need to be moved on. And as I said, if you guys have got any comments or anything you want to put in the chat, then feel free. So for me, first off, Bruno Fernandes. Obviously, was signed in 2020 from Sporting Lisbon. I think Man United signed Bruno at a time when they had Jesse Lingard playing as a number 10. Now, bearing in mind, for me, I thought Jesse Lingard was a decent player. Wasn't the level that that Man United should be looking for in that position as a number 10. But nonetheless, did play his part in some crucial goals for the club. And, you know, he wasn't as bad as what a lot of people made him out to be. But still, for me, he wasn't the level that that Man United should have in that position, being one of the biggest clubs in the world. And then in comes Bruno. And immediately when Bruno came in, he was kind of given the mantle of being that guy for United, to the detriment of someone like a Paul Pogba, who is by far and away a better player than him. But this Man United team and Solskjaer gave Bruno the go-ahead to be more or less the linchpin of the team, you know. And I know when Bruno come in, there was talk about his goals, you know, even though the majority of his goals were from set pieces, which the media don't want to tell you, you know, although you hear a lot of these, the talk about the chances created. But again, what the media and what these pundits don't tell you is that a chance created comes from because Bruno's a corner taker, if he just puts the ball into the box and someone happens to get their head into the ball, that counts as a chance created. If you pass a ball to someone and they dribble it around 2 players, that counts as a chance created and as an assist. So a lot of these stats are misskewed. And as I said, the media don't tell you a lot of these things. They had to run with narratives. And someone like myself, I'm not too fussed with stats. I just like to watch the game and see, you know, what players are doing what in what system, you know, what are they giving to the team. Now, I think Bruno immediately he gave the team a bit of a buzz, as I said, in terms of the position he played, and it's probably something a bit different to what they've had. But I always said when Bruno came in, for me, Bruno, there's deficiencies in his game. You know, he's meant to be playing as a midfielder, and too many times was he ahead of the striker, who was Anthony Martial at the time. And this was a major factor as to why he was getting quite a few goals, you know. And for me, I think people should never shy away from the actual performance of a player in favor of goals, you know, because goals can come from anywhere, but your performance is what will show how good of a player you are, not numbers, in my opinion, you know. And I think, as I say, Bruno came in and the numbers did look good on paper, but his performances were not, you know. And this is coming from someone like myself that has watched more or less every United game, you know, and I can't actually tell you a performance that he's put in, Bruno, that I've sat back and thought, you know what a performance. There's been a few goals where you look back and think, you know what, some good finishes, yeah, give him credit for that. But in terms of his actual performance for the 90 minutes, I can't really tell you that he's put in, you know what I mean, great performances because he hasn't. And this is a big issue in football now with a lot of players, you know. And I think if you look at Bruno now, he's been given the captain's armband. He's one of the highest paid players at the club. He's got the number 8 shirt as well. And he's a fan favourite as well, you know. And for me, he is arguably one of the biggest reasons why Man United are failing, in my opinion, because he's been made the leader of the team at the moment, and he's detrimental to the team in terms of how the team wants to play, because everything goes through him, you know. And Bruno's skill set, let's get this thing started as well. Bruno is not a number 10. He's never been a number 10. A number 10 needs to be good in a half turn. A number 10 needs to be able to dribble. A number 10 needs to be able to slide through balls as well. All three of them things Bruno cannot do. You know, Bruno's someone that he runs around a lot. He's got a decent shot on him as well. You know, and that's it, really. I can't really tell you anything else that's outstanding about Bruno Fernandes, you know. And what I hate about what Bruno does as well, he has this thing about him in the game where he's consistently trying to talk people through the game, and he's consistently waving his arms up to try and direct people to do certain things, you know. I see through all that. You know, I think what he does that to try and show the fans that he's doing a lot without doing a lot, basically, you know. And I think a lot of fans get mixed up thinking that he's a leader by doing that, but he's not. He's actually just becoming a bit of an annoyance, I would say. Because any player, regardless if he's the captain or not, any player that has anything about them, and Bruno's doing that consistently, trying to coach them through the game, is going to have something to say, regardless if you're the captain or not, especially when he's not doing his job, you know. And too many times you see Bruno doing that throughout the game, you know. And the fact that he's been at Man United now for, I believe, four years, I think that, for me, it's time to move on from Bruno Fernandes, because the team has been built around him ever since he came in. And as you can see, the team's getting worse and worse. And then some people will say to you, you know, he hasn't had a team capable of building around his talents, they would say. But the same excuse hasn't been made for other players, i.e. Paul Pogba. So this notion that Bruno needs other players to make him better is nonsense. And he's not the player that a lot of these fans think he is. And for me, someone that definitely needs to be moved on in the summer. How you do it, I don't know. I think Saudi is the only option for him. If Saudi was to come in and say, look, we want to pay 60 mil, let's say, Man United should snap up their hand and take that instantly, you know. But yeah, he's a main reason as to the failing on the pitch, you know. And I just hope when a new manager comes in, Bruno's either moved on or he's moved to the bench, and someone like Bruno, because of the accolades he's been given by this fan base and by the club, he's not going to accept being a bench player. So eventually he'll want to leave anyway. But for Man United to move forward, they need better in that position. For me, Eberechi Eze, Florian Wirtz are the two that I'm looking at to play in that position. For me, I think Eze is more the gettable one, because Florian Wirtz will be playing in Champions League for Bayer Leverkusen, which he might want to have take his hand at. So I think Eze is probably the most likely one. And I think what's good about Eze as well is that Eze has shown he can play from the left. So for me, I think Eze is a key player to target along with Elise in the summer, because Eze can play 10 and can play from the left. And then if you get Elise in, that means Ahmad can play as a 10 and out from the right. I think Man United needs someone like a mercurial talent in that position. And also if you bring Jadon Sancho back as well to play on the left. For me, Man United need players in that position that are mercurial. No longer do I want to see players that are just long ball merchants, not good at thinking when they have the ball and just playing the obvious ball. I want someone that's good between the lines, and is a bit cute with the ball and technically secure. That's what I want to see in that position, personally, for Man United in the summer. So for me, yeah, Bruno Fernandes is a definite player that needs to be moved on. And as I said, it's down to Ineos now to see what the plan is with someone like that. Moving on to Marcus Rashford. For me, I'm not going to dwell on Rashford for too long because I've touched on a few things. But Marcus Rashford is definitely not happy at Man United. I believe it's obviously it's criticism he's been getting, form, certain friends of his that are probably not at the club at the moment or that's been mistreated. And just touching on Rashford, the reason Rashford needs to go, which again is going to be difficult to do because the club stupidly gave him a new deal, made him the highest paid player at the club after one season. And I believe with Rashford, the reason he needs to be moved on is because he's been at the club. He's been in the first team since he was 18. I believe he's now 26. Yeah. So for me, Rashford has, as I've mentioned before, he is now receiving the scapegoat criticism. And that's because this fan base are desperate to push through. When I say fan base, I say the majority of this fan base are desperate to push through Garnacho. And now Rashford has become the fall guy because when Rashford was coming through, the criticism was leveled at Martial. It was leveled at Pogba. Yeah. Attacking players that are by far better football players than Rashford. But because Rashford is the quote-unquote Manc born and bred, Rashford has been getting leeway from this fan base. Now, the problem is because Martial is now looked like he's going, Pogba's now gone, Sancho's now on loan, Rashford has no one to fall back onto now. So what this fan base are trying to do now is push through Garnacho, and now Rashford has actually become the scapegoat that Martial, Sancho, and Pogba were. But if these people actually watch football properly, you'll be able to tell that Rashford was never that level of a Martial, of a Pogba in the first place. It's just that because Martial and Pogba are both French and Rashford's English, this is where the criticism is coming from, And also as well, not to mention, as I mentioned before in one of my earlier podcasts, there's sinister things going on at this club in terms of, in my opinion, racial. I've noticed a few things now. Man United has decided to become a bit racial in the sense of certain fans are just bigging up players, i.e. Hojlund, i.e. Garnacho. And I believe a lot of it is because, let's be honest, the other players that are black, I don't think a lot of these fans want these players to succeed. And I've noticed in the fan base, it's become a bit like this. Before I carry on, big up Adam Fami for the chat. So Adam says, Anthony as well, mostly has been the scapegoat because fans want both Garnacho and Rashford. Adam, I totally agree. I think with Anthony, under a new manager, I believe Anthony will come good. For me, I want Elise and I want Ahmad to be given that chance. As I said before, Ahmad can play as a number 10. But I think Anthony has been harshly criticised this season because I believe this fan base don't want to criticise a Hojlund or a Garnacho for certain reasons. Maybe it's because of the way Anthony is, because Anthony's flamboyant. Remember when Anthony first came into the team, he was doing like the little pirouette on the ball. And I think a lot of these fans can't really get to grips with a player that does that, And I think, me personally, I will try to move Anthony on, but if that means having Elise and Ahmad as the two right wingers, but Anthony's going to be another one that's going to be hard to kind of move on, But yeah, I agree. Anthony's been nowhere near as poor as as Garnacho and as a Hojlund and as a Rashford. But these three players, for different reasons, whether it be Mank, born and bred, whether it be Garnacho, he's just got these fans that, in my opinion, don't really understand football on his side, and the same with Hojlund. Anthony's going to be the fall guy, unfortunately. But as I've said this previously and many times, I want to see United come into next season with Sancho back on that left-hand side. You know, I want to see an Eze come in. I want to see Elise and Ahmad battle it out for that right-hand side. And I want to see a striker and Ivan Toney. You know, me personally, I will do my utmost to keep Anthony Martial because the striker market is poor. But it looks like, obviously, Martial's mind is made up, and obviously the club as well. But, yeah, it's going to be tough times ahead for the club. But as long as we see Ineos going in the right direction, and that means getting rid of this manager first and foremost, it's something that we can all be looking forward to, in my opinion, you know. So yeah, for me with Rashford, how you move him on is going to be difficult, but I believe that he needs to be someone that is going to be a bench option, really. But I mean, you're paying someone north of 300 grand a week to be a bench option. It's going to be hard to kind of justify. But for me, something needs to be done. Or whether he comes and takes second fiddle to Jadon Sancho, if he hopefully comes back, remains to be seen. And then moving on to Garnacho. For me, Garnacho, for me, the reason I'm stuck for words is because I can't believe, out of 30 plus years of watching football, that this player is actually rated. You know, I've seen players come through. I've seen players at the youth team at Man United, the likes of Giuseppe Rossi, the likes of Lee Martin, who was playing, the likes of even at Ebanks Blake, Ravel Morrison, Paul Pogba, obviously, as well. And there's probably other players that I've probably missed out on in that youth team. To think that this fan base thinks Garnacho is the one, I'm sorry to tell you, but he's not. You know, and I think what it is with Garnacho, the fact that Garnacho is being given a bigger praise than someone like an Ahmad just tells me all I need to know about football. Because at the moment, if you just look at Ahmad's quality, you know, and quality should always be looked at first and foremost. Ahmad's quality is by far superior to someone like a Garnacho, and I think this fan base is doing a disservice to real football fans to try and fool us that Garnacho should be playing and be a future player on that left hand side. I mean, Man United had players like Nani, yeah, and Nani was a great player, but Nani was looked at as just a decent player. But I've been hearing things from certain fan channels that Real Madrid and Garnacho, and it's like you have to laugh because you think to yourself, why would Real Madrid want to part ways with and sign Garnacho, like when he's not even good enough to play for Man United? And then people say about his age, but for me, like, it's either you got to be good enough or you're not. You know, we never talk about Kobe Maino's age because we know Kobe Maino is here to stay. You know, Amad Diallo, we don't mention his age because in the glimpses of what we've seen, the quality is there to be seen. You know, but for Garnacho, all we hear is age this, age that, and for me, that's a problem. You know, and I look at Garnacho's his skill set, and a lot of what I see is that he tries to take it on the outside and tries to hit the ball off a defender for a corner, you know, and this is what is being hailed at the moment, which is laughable, you know. And the quicker these fans realize that, you know, he's either going to be a bench player or moved on, the better for this club, because this club can't move forward with players like that starting, you know. And even what's even more amazing is that the fact that a lot of these fans are talking about Garnacho the way they do, and then you've got someone like a Sancho who's going to be playing the Champions League final, who is a misunderstood player as well, because a lot of these fans, what they do as well, they try to base players that they like on the way they play on other players that are not that style of play. Like if you know anything about Jadon Sancho he's basically a number 10 being played out wide, just like a Jack Grealish. These guys are ball manipulated players. They don't just run for the sake of it, past the defender. They try to work out how to get past the defender. It's a different way of attacking, you know. And the fact that these fans think that Garnacho should be playing ahead of someone like a Sancho tells me that the club's in the wrong place. And hopefully Ineos, when they bring in a new manager, will understand this and, you know, kind of show us fans and show the footballing world that they mean business. And the start of it is the manager. Just going to Adam's comment. So that's the problem with getting used to mediocrity. You see average and it looks like greatness. Garnacho isn't better at 19 than Martial, Sancho, Rashford and Ahmed at 18. Adam, absolutely agree with what you're saying, mate. The fact that we're even comparing Garnacho to Martial, Sancho, Rashford and Ahmed at that age just tells you how low that the standards are at the club. Because for me, Garnacho is not even better than a player that I rate highly at Brighton, Julio Enciso. He ain't better than Enciso. And Enciso's been out injured, you know. I obviously, well, we know why Garnacho is getting pushed through. Is because he's adopted Ronaldo's fans. It's obvious, you know. And what's happened now is that, especially with social media has given a lot of people that probably haven't played the game or don't understand the game and just follow players and try to use that as arguments to trying to talk down other people rather than watching the game themselves, you know. And for me, as I've mentioned, he's nowhere near the level. As I said, if you want to use him as a bench option, then I see it, tired legs, but no way can we see Garnacho as the main starter. And this whole number 7 talk that he should be getting, yeah, throw that in the bin. There's no way he should be even in contention for that, you know? And then we move on to Rasmus Hojlund. For me, possibly the worst striker I've seen so far at Man United. And that's including Odin Igalo, who wasn't that bad, but in terms of the level of strikers that Man United need, yeah, Rasmus has to be the worst. And I'll tell you why he's the worst. Bearing in mind, I've seen players like Giuseppe Rossi at Man United. If anyone that's old enough knows about Giuseppe Rossi, yeah, this guy, Giuseppe Rossi, was ridiculous. In the youth and reserve team, he was just causing so many problems for defenders. He was bagging there like every week, you know. And the only thing that stopped Giuseppe Rossi was injuries. But anyone that watched MUTV back in the day will tell you how good this guy was. So when we're seeing players like Rasmus Hojlund, who's 21, you can't expect people like myself that have watched MUTV with Giuseppe Rossi to rate a player like Rasmus Hojlund. The main thing for Hojlund is that Hojlund spends half his time trying to be that target man and wrestle defenders. You know, the smartest strikers drop off a defender, look for the space, not every time trying to be that target man and hold the play. Now, whether he's been told to do that by Ten Hag, again, is another failing on the manager, because the kind of way Rasmus wants to play is the way of an experienced striker, if they wanted to do that. You know, someone like a Drogba in his prime. Obviously, when he's experienced, you can see him doing that. But Rasmus is trying to learn the game, and he's playing in a way where he ain't strong enough to be doing that. And also, his pace. Why not use your pace in a different way? Why do you feel he has to kind of keep playing that way as a target man, and then you just see him just getting dashed on the floor every second? I think his touch is hit and miss as well, you know. And I think his game intelligence ain't there. You know, for me, Rasmus needs to be drifting out wide every so often. If he's not getting the ball, go and find the ball. You know, too many times like he's just there in no man's land waiting for the ball. If your teammate playing you the ball, yeah, this is where intelligence comes into it. Go and look for the ball. If it means you come in that position to get involved, then you go and do that. And I think if the manager is telling him to stay where he is, you know, you've got to have something about yourself to be like, you know, I'm not getting the ball, so let me go and find the ball and try and make something happen. But I think what makes me sick about the Rasmus Hojlund is that this fan base are trying their best to sell us Hojlund and Garnacho, you know. And I keep saying it, these two players are not the level and won't be the level, you know. And it's nothing to do with age. You can just see from the skill set. And Man United is meant to be an elite club as well. We're meant to have elite players, you know. So many times I say we talk about Martial, going back to Martial, you know. Martial had a Ballon d'Or clause in his contract for a reason, you know. Mismanagement and injuries have played its part, you know. But when you look at Martial, the way he receives the ball's not bouncing off him, you know. There is a consistent quality to Martial in when he receives the ball and then how he lays the ball off, you know, how he gets into positions to receive the ball. And Martial, yeah, he's 28 now, but I see glimpses of Martial when he was younger, even when he's playing out from wide, the way he would try and get on the ball, you know, the quality he had. And the same can't be said for Hojlund. You know, Hojlund is he's not good enough. This is the guy that scored nine league goals for Atalanta, you know, and to be bought for 72 million, which again is not his fault that he's bought for 72 million, but you'd expect a lot more from someone that was bought for that amount, you know. And for me, next season, he cannot be the starting striker. Me personally, being ruthless, and it's going to be difficult, I'll get rid of him because he's not good enough, or even loan him. But it's unlikely that's going to happen. So it means that he has to be a bench option next season. And I think that Man United need to just go and get an Ivan Toney, because I look at Ivan Toney right now, in terms of strikers in world football that are possibly gettable, he's probably the only one, you know. And again, that just shows you that the dearth of strikers. I like that Dovbyk as well from Girona. I think Dovbyk looks special, to be fair. He looks like he's got something. But the striker market ain't there, because a lot of these players now are becoming inside forwards, you know, which is why the dearth of strikers now is gone. And even the ones that are there, you've got Harry Kane, Lewandowski, obviously Benzema's playing in Saudi. That kind of striker now is being ousted from the game. And you've got someone like Erling Haaland, obviously, who's leading at the moment. And we all know about Erling Haaland, great goal scorer, but poor footballer. And this is what we're fishing now. Victor Osimhen's not good enough, you know. So yeah, in terms of strikers, the market ain't that great, really. So, but someone like Ivan Toney, he's at a peak age for me. You know, he's as a striker for me, he's got everything, and he's a top player for me. So I think Man United need to do everything they can to try and get him. Yeah, Adam. I'm a massive fan of Anthony Martial. For me, Anthony Martial is every bit as good as Mbappe. Obviously, probably not now because of the injury that took its toll. But if you're looking at from a quality basis, what ruined Martial was Louis van Gaal getting sacked. You know, because Van Gaal is a coach, and anyone that knows anything about football will know that the difference between Van Gaal and Mourinho is that Louis van Gaal coaches players, Mourinho needs the finished product, you know. And since Van Gaal left, Man United have not had a manager that coaches players to get better. And even someone like a Rashford has lost development under these different managers. But yeah, anyone that doesn't think Martial's a top player and that should have been a top player, I'm bearing in mind, I still believe that Martial can get to a good level in terms of being one of the best strikers in Europe. Because don't forget, he's only 28, you know, and I think that if he can stay injury free, whether that's at Man United or elsewhere, you're going to see his quality, because there's a reason why he had this clause in his contract. And then many people laugh, but just look at him when he was 19, you know. Tell me a 19-year-old that's come from a different country into what's deemed as the hardest league in the world, and that's got 15 goals in all comps in their first season. There isn't many that's come from a different league to come to the Premiership, you know. And the ridicule that he gets, he only gets ridiculed because unfortunately, a lot of fans don't really understand football, you know, and that's the problem, you know. To be criticizing someone like a Martial is madness, but people go onto his attitude, you know. It's the same nonsense about you know, he looks like he doesn't fancy playing, you know. It's just nonsense all the end of the day. People need to just focus on the quality of a player, you know, obviously injuries permitting as well, and just look at what he has to offer, you know. So yeah, man, that's my take on the forward players that are detrimental to the future of Man United. Bruno Fernandes for sure, Marcus Rashford for sure, and then you've got to decline Garnacho and Hojlund to the bench, or if they're unhappy with that, get them out of the club. Simple as. And as I said, the players that I will bring in, you know, obviously I said, Adam, if you've got any other players you think Man United should be bringing in, then drop them in the chat. But for me, in terms of the attacking positions, Michael Olise for definite, Eberechi Eze or Florian Wirtz, Ivan Toney, bring Sancho back. I mean, personally, I'd bring Mason Greenwood back, but we're not sure what's happening with that. But those are the players that I would definitely be looking at in the summer. And then in the midfield, yeah, there's obviously players that Man United should be targeting, but I think there's no point talking yet about the midfield until we know what's happening with the likes of the McTominays, the Brunos. Obviously, I think Amrabat's going back anyway. The Ericssons. I think there's players that Man United should be targeting, but we'll have to wait and see. But in that attacking area, yeah, for sure, Eze, Olise, and Ivan Toney for me. You know, I want Florian Wirtz, but I can't see that happening. But yeah, I think those are the kind of players that need to be looked at. So yeah, I think that's my take on that, really. If you guys have any differences of opinion, as I say, don't forget to smash that in the chat. Smash the like button, and subscribe to my channel. Gav Goes In. Should I read one more chat from Adam? So he goes, he missed the Bruno part. Okay. Yeah, cool, Adam. No problem, man. I say, guys, yeah, subscribe to my channel at Gav Goes In. Smash the like button, and I'll catch you guys again tomorrow for my, I think it's the 7th edition of players to look out for next season. I believe it's, I think got Pau Kabasi coming up, I believe. So yeah, tune in for that, and I'll catch you guys again tomorrow. Take it easy.